Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Natalie Connolly. Hold on to your hats because, yeah, let's go. Sin and Tonic! I'm feeling a little wobbled because I walked up to the shed, the sun was in my eyes, and I walked straight into, oh my god, what is it? Like it's a buoy. I don't know how to describe it, but Paul has got this big thing that you put in the sea. I think it's a buoy, and you fill it up with water and you hang it, and it's like a punching bag, right? An alternative to a punching bag, but it's effectively a big thing filled with water, and it's like hard and heavy, and I couldn't see, and I just walked literally just straight into it. So I'm like, well, and I've got a headache coming on. Not because of that. I had that before, and then I did that, and you know when you're just like, really? I had so much rage. No one's fault, but just what? Anyway, so I'm checking myself. Onwards and upwards, here we go. Today's story takes us to Staffordshire. I shall show you where that is, to a place called Kinver, and we're going to 2016. How long ago was that? 7 years ago? Wow. Natalie Connolly was 26 at the time of our story. Natalie was a single mum. She had an 8-year-old daughter. Natalie grew up in a very loving home. She was very close to her family, especially her twin sister, Gemma. I love a twin. Do you think they get fed up with just people like, getting excited? Because if I see identical twins, I'm just like, what is this magic? It's just magic to me. It's fascinating. So I do that thing where I'm like, starey. Shouldn't do it, should know better, but I can't help it. So Natalie and Gemma, twins. Natalie's friends and family would describe her as fun-loving, kind, free-spirited. Sounds like she liked to have fun, have a party. She was like up for that. She was happy-go-lucky, bubbly, fun to be around, always up for fun. Fun. In June of 2016, Natalie met somebody called John Broadhurst. Natalie's 26, John is 39. They met in a pub and they hit it off. It sounds like it was one of those relationships where it just like sparks flew. Bit spicy because John was currently with somebody else. Bit naughty. Not only that, but she was also pregnant with their second child. So they had one kid together and she was carrying, another one on the way. John then meets Natalie. And it really must have been electric because John then, within a matter of weeks, John leaves his pregnant fiancée and child and he moves Natalie into his home. So Natalie moves in with him. So does her daughter Madison. John was living in a 5-bedroom rental property at the time. And because his current home, his house that he owned, was being renovated. Now, you see, John, he was rich. Not just a little bit rich, like 15 million rich. He was worth 15 million. What the deuce? Things settle into like normal. So they become like a blended family. John gave Natalie an allowance every week of money, and he also bought her a new car. 15 million, just spreading it around. What are you going to do? I wouldn't even know what I would do with that. That is beyond my comprehension. 15 million pounds. People would say that they were really happy together. You should think so. Like this is, like honeymoon period as well, because they're so new. Between June and December, both Natalie and John would talk about their sex life with people, talked about it with friends or whatever. And it would seem that the picture that was painted here was from John's perspective, was that Natalie enjoyed rough sex. From the other perspective, Natalie's, she would talk to her sister and her mum, and she would say that it was John that was, more of the instigator and he enjoyed it more than she did. She would also share pictures with her mum and her sister of some of the bruising that would occur during these rough sex episodes, sessions. What do you want to say? You pick. Natalie said that John was good in bed, but that sometimes it was a bit too rough for her liking. Other than that, things were seemingly great. Moving on to Sunday the 17th of December 2016. The couple go out for a jolly that day, and that involves early drinking, lots of drinking, pub lunch, more drinking. They took in a footy match, more drinking. Finished off with an evening meal at an Indian restaurant. Yum. Sounds like a great day. They also took cocaine, poppers, and amphetamines. So it was a bingy one because they had drunk a lot of alcohol. Witnesses said that they looked like they were having a great time. I mean, you know, it sounds like they were, doesn't it? But it wasn't like there was anything untoward or there was any animosity between the pair or any arguments or feuding. It looked like they were just having a jolly good time. Their driver had a driver, as you would, 15 mil, picks them up, takes them home at the end of the night. Natalie ends up leaving her phone in the car because she's drunk. And the driver then has to come back and drops her phone back to the house. This was at about 11:40 p.m. I lied, it says 11:20 in my notes. This would be the last time that anybody other than Broadhurst would see Natalie alive. 9:23 a.m. the following day, Broadhurst makes a 999 call. He says that he has woken up and found Natalie dead. At this point, I'm thinking, okay, she had a lot of alcohol. Sounds like she was drinking all day and she'd taken drugs. She's slim. Has she accidentally died from an overdose, or has she like, you know, when people are so drunk and I think it's really sad when they like choke on their own vomit. This was my thinking, like this poor man at this point. He's woken up to find his partner dead, and all they tried to do was like have a good time. You know, they probably drank too much, took too many drugs, but that's sad, you know? Awful. No. John had tried to administer CPR, but to no avail. And when the paramedics arrived, it was very clear, very obvious that she had been dead for quite a long time because her body was in rigor mortis. And I am guessing because I have not seen a dead body, have I? I've really tried hard not to be honest. By that, I mean I had the opportunity to see, you know, some loved ones and stuff like that, and I have always chosen not to, just because that's my choice. But that's what I mean. Most people go around trying to avoid seeing dead bodies, I would assume. Point is, I'm guessing that it is quite obvious when somebody has been deceased for a while. The responders find Natalie at the bottom of the stairs, on her back. She's basically naked, but her skirt is up around her, like it's up, being hoiked up around her waist. And she is in a pool of her own blood. Maybe has she fallen down the stairs? No. She was covered in injuries. This is suspicious. The autopsy showed significant bruising over her chest, her lower back, and her buttocks. I'm not just talking about, walked into the side of a bed frame, banged your knee, even though that is actually really freaking painful, isn't it? And it can come up with a nasty bruise. We're talking a repeated beating of those areas, so much so that it was like the tissue, it was damaged really deep. Like these were big, deep tissue bruises. Ouch. Sustained beating. She had over 40 injuries on her body. One of her eye sockets was broken. She had experienced severe blunt force trauma to, you know, that area of her head to cause that much damage. Her face had been sprayed with bleach. What the hell? And she had significant internal bleeding. Now, later on, I'm going to tell you what actually happened there. The internal bleeding was, every woman watching this will, if you choose to listen to what happened, will be crossing their legs for weeks, because I literally, I can't unread it, but I can warn you about it, so I will, because it's But anyway, for now, I shall just say that the internal injuries were to her vagina, and this was part of Natalie's cause of death. So she also had so much alcohol in her system. It was so high that could have caused her to die. That's how much alcohol she had consumed. So it was a very dangerous level of alcohol in her system, as well as mixing that with the drugs that she had taken as well. So her cause of death was both. It was alcohol consumption and internal bleeding. She bled to death. It was thought that she would have died very, very quickly after the injury and being left at the bottom of those stairs. The internal injuries had severed an artery. The pathologist, and this is something to note, this is something that I held on to in this case because I could not get over this and how what happened and the sentencing. Because guess what? Whoa. Spoiler alert. But the pathologist said that the level of alcohol in her body would have deemed her unconscious, most likely, and if not unconscious, close to unconscious. She wouldn't have been able to stand or get up or move around, likely not even able to talk, not coherently, maybe just some mumbles, but probably unconscious. Paramedics, obviously, this is a weird scene, this is gruesome. Like, oh, I've woken up and my partner is dead, and then they find this. They also noted that Broadhurst was exhibiting just not the behaviour you would expect from somebody whose partner has just died, especially in this very unusual and gruesome way. The police were called and he was arrested on suspicion of murder. In his interview, he gave his version of events. He said they arrived home after their lovely day out, and Natalie wanted to carry on drinking. He said that she then consumed an entire bottle of amaretto. Well, and that they carried on taking cocaine. At this point, bearing in mind the amount of alcohol in her body and what the pathologist was saying about how she would be like near unconscious, etc., apparently at this point, she instigated rough sex. I question whether she could even speak or give consent, let alone ask. We'll listen to his story. He said that he used a suede boot because he didn't want to use a belt. He thought it might hurt her too much. He hit her repeatedly across her breasts and her buttocks and her lower back with this shoe. When he stopped, he said that she asked him to carry on. Now I'm going to just give a warning. I want to be quite clear about the warning on this one so people don't miss it. Okay, so I might just stop and put a little screeny timer on. I'm just saying that with my voice because I don't want people to be listening and not watching and miss me putting a time on. But I'll put a time on somewhere with the exact time to skip to. To be honest, I read a lot of cases and I nearly couldn't eat my lunch. It's not what I expected. And yeah, so just be careful with it. And if you don't want to know, I don't blame you. Okay, I'm going to start now. He then said that she requested that he insert a bottle of carpet cleaner into her vagina. Now, I'm not talking about a round spray or anything like that, like a round tin or anything. No, I'm not. I'm talking about a cleaning bottle of fluid with a trigger. That is what he said she requested. I'm going to stop right now and just say no woman would request that. He said, and I'm not surprised, that it got stuck and that he couldn't remove it. In the process, he said he had to put his hand in and he had to move it around, twist it and so forth to try and remove it. And in the process, he broke the bottle of carpet cleaner. He said he then managed to remove it and the pieces with lube. I feel sick. He said there was quite a lot of blood. Now, bearing in mind that we know the injury that has caused, arterial bleeding. oh, there was a reasonable amount of blood, but she said she was fine. We also know that the pathologist said that she was likely unconscious. And my next point to this, and I'm so thankful that I do believe she was unconscious or in and out, because if that happened, you would not be just quiet about it. You would be screaming to high heaven. And there were neighbours around. I do honestly believe that they would have heard, if that was going on, they would have heard about it if she was conscious. And that does bring me some comfort for her, because I hope that she was unconscious. He then said that she must have banged her head at some point. So from what I could gather, I think that injury, her eye socket, again, if she has got a broken eye socket, he said she had blood on her head and from her nose at the time, but she said she was fine. Let me just think, what person is going to be like, oh, I've just smashed my face in, I've broken my eye socket, I'm bleeding from my face, I'm so drunk that I've fallen and caused myself a very painful injury. Let me just lay here and have sex with you. Really? Also, how thick? Let's say that we believed his story anyway. So you're the person that you love, she is so drunk that she's bleeding from her head and her nose. Even if she was saying, I'm fine, do this, do that, you wouldn't do it. Not if you love that person. With serious injuries like that, you would be ringing an ambulance or taking her, he's drunk, but ringing your driver and getting him back. If you notice that she's damaged her face in that way and she's bleeding from her face and her nose and her eye is like basically smashed in, and you're like, oh, okay, because you said so, because you want it. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. Is it also okay to leave her at the bottom of the stairs, naked, apart from her skirt hoiked up, at the bottom of the stairs, bleeding, because he knows that she's bleeding. He's seen that. There was a reasonable amount of blood, he said. He knows that she's bleeding. And then he went to bed. He left her like that, and he went to bed for 6 hours. He says, yeah, that is okay, and that he'd done it before. He said, she just needed to sleep it off, and that had been the case in the past. No blanket. No, I'm just going to put you on the sofa even. Like, what? What? No. There is more going on. There is more going on now. And the bleach, do you remember I said about the bleach? Man, honestly, he said he sprayed bleach on her face because he didn't want her to look a mess. So did he do that? I didn't check this. I didn't read this. Did he do that when she was dead? Like, what, for the purposes of the ambulance people? I don't think they're going to give a crap. Was he hiding evidence? Or, we'll get to what I think in a minute, because I think there was another reason. Quite rightly, he was charged with Natalie's murder. He pleaded not guilty. He said it was all consensual. At his trial, his team used the rough sex defence. It was a horrible defence because it basically places the blame for what happened to her onto her. She asked for it. That's the gist of it. Well, she asked for it. She consented to it. Therefore, but that doesn't make sense to me. If somebody asked you to run them over with your car and you did it, no. First of all, you wouldn't. Second of all, if you did, it would be expected that person would get in trouble because, you don't just, it's like that thing, isn't it, that your parents say, would you run off a cliff if they asked you to? It's that sort of thing, isn't it? You still have a choice. And I don't like that defence at all, because it's like, well, you have to be responsible for your actions. Even if you kill somebody by accident, and they were seemingly okay with what was going on before that accident, you still caused their death. So I can understand what happened next, because the prosecution they dropped the charge from murder to manslaughter with gross negligence. And I do understand that. Oh, that was the chair, not my bum. Because, excuse you, they likely felt like he might not actually be convicted of murder because there would be reasonable doubt, because it could have probably been shown that he didn't mean to kill her and he didn't have intent to kill her. So I get that. So they dropped it to the lesser charge, which carries a much lesser sentence, which is crazy, but I can see why they did it. Also, if somebody is not in their, like, this opens up a can of worms, doesn't it? Because what if someone is not in their right mind? For example, absolutely like drugged and drunk out of their mind. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I would say that her consent, let alone her asking and saying for it, but her consent is very questionable with the amount of drugs and alcohol that were in her body. She needed to be looked after and cared for, even if, right, let's just say this, even if the drugs and alcohol in her body somehow made her bionic, because sometimes I do surprise myself with how much I can drink. Let's be real. Sometimes that has happened to me. I'm like, what? I've had far too much, but I feel okay. I don't know why. Maybe I had all the carbs that day. I don't know. Also, I'm a lot bigger than she is, but the chair. My point is, even if in some stretch of our imagination, she had loads of drugs and loads of drink and it just made her like, I don't know, really wide awake and really like bionic and like she wasn't feeling pain and she was just like, yeah, like hit me, do it some more. Even then, as a loving person in her life, her partner, you would stop and be like, I'm going to stop here because I can see. He even said in an interview that he could see that the bruises appearing as he was hitting her. That's vile. If you can see that happening and she's not stopping you for whatever reason, probably because she was unconscious and you were being a dick, but even if she was bionic, like she had turned into like, you know, Wonder Woman and she could no longer feel pain, even if that was the case, like the next day, mate, she's going to feel that hard and you are meant to be loving her. You don't just carry on because she's not stopping you. What? You certainly don't keep going when what you are doing is quite obviously going to cause life-changing, let alone life-ending injury because she asked him to. My judgment kind of lies here because I feel like this has everything to do with what happened to Natalie. The prosecution found that Natalie had been communicating and texting with some other men, and that one of those messages involved a topless photograph. They put forward that this triggered something in Broadhurst and that he was filled with rage, and this caused him to behave the way he did and to cause horrific injuries to Natalie when she had no way of defending herself. There was also some evidence given at trial. I read about this, but I didn't find out what evidence it was, but just to suggest that he was a very controlling man. And that is interesting to me because the use of bleach on her face and the use of the thing that happened that I spoke about earlier, well, you know, it's almost symbolic, isn't it, that she's dirty, that she needs cleaning up. To me, the vibe is very that she's an object. The way he left her at the bottom of the stairs, the way he has done what he's done is very, you're mine, I own you, how dare you do that, you're dirty, I'll show you. Despite him saying that he didn't intend to kill her or cause her harm, blows my mind, he didn't actually try to help her in any way. Oh, I didn't mean to hurt her, didn't mean to kill her. Okay, but when you realised that she was hurt, you did nothing. You did nothing. To me, that just deserves a hell of a more. Anyway, we'll get to that because the sentencing is not okay. He failed to save her life. He didn't even put her in the recovery position at the bottom of the stairs. He left her on her back. He didn't stay with her. He didn't put a blanket or a pillow or prop her in any which way. He showed absolutely no care whatsoever for her. None. Didn't ring an ambulance. Didn't take her to hospital. He did nothing. He just left her. Like she was worthless. He couldn't argue that he had grossly neglected his duties as her partner. So he pleaded guilty, and that then ended the trial because they lessened the charge. So he was like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. Get ready for the vein. Ooh, because the judge, who is this guy? He gave leniency for a couple of reasons. One, that Broadhurst had said, yeah, I'm guilty. Ooh, well done. Why wouldn't he? He's just been offered a much lesser charge and sentence, knowingly. He knows that. So yes, please, thank you. I'll have that. The judge also considered that Broadhurst was a man of good character before this event, what the dudes, i.e. he had not committed any crimes before. I know that they take that into account. Sometimes what that person has done is just like, okay, that's even more worrying that is out of character. So what? Something just didn't slightly go your way and then boom, you're like off the radar with your response. That's more dangerous. Don't be like, oh, but you've never done anything before. No, what the hell he has just done is like, that makes up for all of that. Don't even count that, man. Like, what? He received 3 years and 8 months. 3 years and 8 months, of which he served just shy of 2 years. He killed that woman, and he served 22 months in prison. If we look at the facts, he beat her extensively, causing significant and gross bruising to her body. Somehow in this event, her eye was completely smashed, the eye socket. That's a significant injury, although we don't know how that happened. He took advantage of her and abused her when she was incredibly intoxicated, to the point that experts say that she was likely unconscious. And I really do believe that she was, because she, like I say, she would have been in huge amounts of pain and she would have been making noise about that. However, she is meant to, in the judge's opinion, have ignored the agony of this and not just consented, but actually instigated. What happened next? I don't think so, mate. Also, love, if you think she was drunk enough to fall and fracture her eye socket and then be like, oh, anyway, let's get jiggy with it. I can't believe I just said that, but right, if that's what he thinks, she was that drunk, that blind drunk that she could just ignore that injury, how does consent, like proper consent, which I think is meant to be like, isn't that really squiffy if someone's intoxicated? Yeah. So why in this case is that just like not a thing? Why? At the end of the day, as I'm thinking about this, she died. She died as a result of the actions of this man. She was a sister, a daughter, a mother, and he just treated her like she was nothing. People go to prison for a much longer time for much less. Not even violent crime sometimes. They go to prison for a longer time for much less. I don't understand, and I do question, a very rich man, 15 million? I know he had like the best of the best defence team, but I question whether there might have been more to that with all that money flying around. I wonder. Sorry, I was just defluffing over there. And also, they're just taking his word for it because she's not there, is she, to say what happened, give her side of the story. Her body tells a really different story to, the physical evidence on her body tells a very different story to his story. But he was the one that was listened to and believed. And I struggle with that. She did not get justice. And after 22 months, of which, he got 3 years and 8 months, he appealed that. Whoa. I mean, come along. They rejected it, but he served 22 months and then he just went back to his millions. In my opinion, this was a domestic abuse case. He felt like he owned her. He treated her like a possession. She had made him angry by speaking to other men, how dare she, and he had taught her a lesson for it. He purposefully hurt her. How could he not know that he was hurting her? He then abused her and then he left her to die. And I do, in my gut, I feel like she was unconscious or in and out of consciousness. She was in a bad way, and he took his opportunity and his anger. This is my opinion, but his anger then flowed. So how dare she? I'll show her. And while she was out of it and she couldn't fight back in any way, because there were no marks on him either, and he would have been really hurting her. And that led to her death. He was sending such a painful message, and he did not care whether he was causing her pain and suffering at all. I wonder whether he also knew that his wealth would see him okay. In April of 2021, the Domestic Abuse Act was, what do you call it? Came into effect. And this banned the Rough Sex Act defence. Thank goodness. What a horrible defence. Because it's like, even like that thing, that like, even if you're like, oh yeah, okay, and then it goes wrong and it goes too far, that person killed you. You've got to be super careful. So I'm glad that that isn't on the table anymore, because it's just like, yeah, be super careful. Sadly, if Broadhurst was convicted now, he would get, or could get, 25 years. And instead he served 22 months. Let me know what you guys think about this one. I apologise if this was quite heavy, because I felt so strongly about this. Can you tell? That is the most angry I've been, I believe, and the most shocked I have ever been by an outcome of a case. And yeah, angry. So I feel like that might have been a little heavy, but I do apologise for that. But, it's important. Her story is an important one, I think, definitely. How has everyone's week been? Oh, 2 weeks actually, because I skipped a week, didn't I? Sorry if I've been doing something weird with my tongue and my teeth throughout the video, but there's something in my brace. I have a rash across the back to keep all my teeth straight, and I feel like there's something stuck in it. It's really annoying. I can't get it out, so I'm going to go in and brush my teeth. Oh, clickety click. Brush it, brush it, brush it. Oh, with the sauce. Anyway, love you. I missed you. I was so excited to come up the shed today. Any case suggestions, please pop them in the comments below. Ooh. I feel like I found a case earlier, and I don't think I wrote it down, but I was like, oh gosh. I'll check that when I get in. I'm going to go and have my dinner now. I'm going to go and have myself a nice Ruby Murray. Have a wonderful weekend. Do join me next week for another true crime story, and a mug, and a jug, and a jug, and a snug, and a hug, and a bug of gin. Love you, miss you, really want to kiss you. See you next week. Bye.